Alright, so in the last video we did the SQO, which is a sequencer for, we changed from ladder logic to the sequencer using the SQO instruction, and we controlled this tank with the batching station, right, for the batching system. Now during testing and stuff like that, I've changed this to 60 seconds or 10 seconds, put that back at 60 seconds for the impeller to run. Now what I've done, instead of having like memory logic and stuff like that, because that gets kind of, to be honest with you, it gets a little you know, like confusing and stuff like that, is I've just merely said if the stop button or the stop, you know, start or stop is there, I'm going to keep this sequencer in the same state. Even if I hit an e-stop, you can see the light still blinks and it still works. So even if I hit an e-stop and I start it back, you can easily see that it starts back in the same process. So it does start the sequencer back in the same. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm keeping the sequencer in the same function, but I've put in the stop button and emergency stop right here. So I put in basically saying if the stop button is pressed or if the e-stop is pressed, don't do any outputs. Also, if the start button is pressed right here, make sure the valve is pushed to 0. And if the stop put again start, stop, or if the stop and the emergency stop is pressed, no impeller, stop and emergency stop is pressed, no output, no tank output. And again, don't let the valve go right here. Don't let the valve go to 100%. So with that said, this all works just like it's supposed to now. Just like we talked about with it, we found a little loophole in there with the sequencer. So you can easily see I can stop it, start it where I want to. Also too, I changed the functions here. So I said if basically if equal to, in just like a state machine you would, I would say if the batching sequencer position is in if it's in state 1, 2, 3, or 4, you'll easily see. So if it's in 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, the sequencer is still controlling at a length of 5. So what it does, and as far as this goes, I'm unlatching the start light. So you'll see as soon as the batch is done, what happens is the system will stop and it will also unlatch the start button. So what that does is it indicates to the operator, okay, the batch is done. I started the batch earlier, the batch ran through, and they came, let's just say they came back and the batch is gone, you know, everything in the tank is gone. And so it's just like it is right now, it's evacuating out. And so once it does that, what it's going to do is as soon as it goes into the sequencer goes into step 5, it's going to unlatch the light. And that therefore is going to let the operator know that they need to start another batch. You know, else if the light stays on, one would think that the system is still active, right? One would think that, okay, well, there's something going on because I've already started the system, but there's no activity. So it's important to control your lights and your indicators and stuff like that, just as it is making sure the valves and stuff like that operate properly. Because again, when it comes down to it, making something work per design is very important, but also making stuff work so that it's operator friendly is also very, very important. You know, and the second thing behind it is making sure the logic is easy to read for the person behind you. This is very simple. You know, I've aliased the tags. You know, if you watch the other video where I programmed everything from ladder logic to the sequencer, it was about a 30-something minute video, right? But to be frankly honest with you, programming this from scratch from 30-something minutes, really not that bad. It is a little bit daunting to sit there and watch that, but it's very educational. It's very understanding, and you know exactly how this sequencer works because I showed you. So that's why I'm going back on this video showing you the recovery process of what we did. So with this said, you can see the batch fully going through. So if I stop it right now, you can easily see it'll pick right back up. It'll continue on. No worries. Again, it still works as it should. I'm not stopping the sequencer whatsoever. So as soon as this goes into step 5, you'll see the light goes off. So when the light goes off, it is a firm indicator to the operator that there is no activity and they need, the batch is complete, it's evacuated, it's left, and they need to start a new batch. So all they have to do is hit the start button. Well, the start button right here currently is in state 5. So, or it's in the position 5. So the position 5 is going to come in and execute, and then come in here and step the SQO one time, and then when the start light comes on, which is the sealing circuit, okay, it's going to be in it's not going to be in position 5 anymore. It's going to be in position 1. So if I start it, you can easily see the start button latches in, the process starts. If I stop it, it stops. If I start it back, so it's easy to operate, it's easy to function. It's very understandable as far as, you know, what the operator should and shouldn't do, what they can and can't do. If they hit an e-stop for some odd reason, the stop button light comes on, you can easily see that. They pull it out and then they hit the start button again, everything is started. You can easily see that. So again, what's keeping this system working in conjunction is basically the position right here. It basically ignores this top rung if it's, unless it's in step 0, ignores the second rung if it's in unless it's in step 1. And then currently we're in step 2, so it is currently functioning off step 2. It's filling the tank. But again, so if it stopped, it's still in step 2. So no matter what happens here with the light and the start and all that stuff, it's ignored because the actual SQO control, the position for the SQO, the sequencer control position, is being monitored, so it knows exactly where it is in its functionality. So it's very easy to understand, it's very easy to interpret where you're at in the process. And very, very similar, if you compare this to the ladder logic version of what I had, it's very similar. You know, it's not very, I guess hard to read. It's not very confusing. The only thing about it is it's using the sequencer. And again, as long as you know what the sequencer is doing, and again, we in the batch right here, the batch array, we use binary coded decimal. So we use 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and so on. 128. Obviously, we only have 5 steps, so we only did, we only have the bits right here that we're currently using, and I did alias those bits as you've seen in the last video. So to kind of, like I said before, instead of having something that you had memory tags and we're trying to pick up where you left off and this and that, all I'm doing is not interfering whatsoever with the SQO and just stopping the outputs. I'm just not controlling any, I'm not allowing any control outside of what I'm doing. If this stops, you can easily see right there, it starts back. Now the only thing is I probably should change this to a retentive timer, but I mean, if it runs another 60 seconds, it's not a big deal. But to keep in mind, that's the only thing that is there right there. So if I change it to a retentive timer, then I have to put a reset in there and all that. So I think, if you do stop it in the propeller and it's in propeller mode and it's mixing, if it mixes for an extra whatever 30 seconds or whatever the case may be, that's not a big deal. Now if that time were extended to like 10 minutes or 15 minutes or something like that, then you would put in a retentive timer, and then you could put in a reset on the very next step or something like that. But for the sake of argument, the system is fully functional the way it is, and this is the simple way to have a simple recovery for your SQO or your sequencer. Again, we're using this for a batching system. Not very, it's not uncommon to be used. I've seen it used quite a bit. You've seen me use FAL instructions. You see me use different instructions, regular state machines. You see me, like I'm a big component of finite state machines, but when it comes down to it, can you do it with an SQO? Yes, this is proof of what you can and can't do with an SQO. And again, you stop at any given time, picks right back up exactly where it left off, because we are not indexing the SQO. So therefore, we're keeping the bits that are active inside the SQO. So in this case, batching underscore state 3 which is state 4, outlet valve open. We're keeping that. So if I stop that right there, that bit right there is still active, because inside of the SQO it's still pointing to that array. It's still pointing to that destination in that array. So that's how we're getting by with that. It keeps it really simple, keeps it really easy to read. And again, I'm going to let the system run one more time just so you can see it finish out. But with that said, this is the working system. And again, for the first video, again, it was about 32 minutes or 34 minutes, something like that. But programming directly from ladder logic to SQO in 30-something minutes is still not that bad. And then having another, probably 15 minutes behind that, talking about how the corrections of how we actually did the SQO and recovery and stuff like that, which is this video right here. So with that said, I hope a lot of people learned a lot from this video, because again, if you watch the whole series, you watch the whole video, you understand exactly the way the SQO works, the sequencer works. And with this said, you understand now how a simple recovery can be programmed and have everything work, and make it work so the operator understands the way the system works too as well. You see it easily stops right there, and that's as simple as it is. It still works exactly the same way with the ladder logic that we had. Matter of fact, even better, kind of, in my opinion. But with that said, hopefully you learned a lot from this video, and we'll see you guys on the next one.